Hello everyone, welcome to the last plenary of this workshop. Today's speaker is Balaji Prabhakar from Stanford. Balaji has made significant contributions to a number of fields, including operations research, computer science, probability, networking. He has influenced a number of standards. He will very soon influence all of us. Along the way, he has collected a number of awards, including the Erlang Prize in Operations Research, Sloan Fellowship, Computer Science, Roland Davidson Prize in Probability, and many others. And so he actually has won so many awards that on Sunday at the reception, I was standing next to him when we all opened our fortune cookies. And he opened his and said, "You'll win a prestigious award very soon." And he turns to me and says, "What, another one?" So I'll just leave the floor to Balaji.
I hope it's a random reward, which is what you'll hear from me about today, a lot of. So this is joint work with a lot of people, most of who are students, some faculty, and some folks from companies. And it's about networks that we encounter. So societal networks are networks we encounter every day that don't have to do with computing or communication. So if you ignore the internet and throw away smartphones, whatever you're left with that you interact with every day, let's call them all societal networks. Okay. And here are some examples. You have water, gas, milk distribution networks, everything else in there if you want. So these networks have humans in the loop in a way that computer networks, communication networks don't, and it'll become clear how that manifests itself. And they're resource limited, and because of urbanization, which is the phenomenon of the world's population tending to live more and more in cities. So to give you an idea, 20% of humans used to live in cities in 1900s. We passed the 50% mark in 2010. And we're slated to pass the 70% mark in 2030. So urban living is the future. These things tend to get very constrained. And here are some numbers, emission costs worldwide, and I'll be more clear on that when the US numbers are shown. Emissions, wellness, etc. So there are a lot of problems. They look like this. So we've all these lurid images of people frustrated. And so here is one from China. This is the world's longest traffic jam. It says here it's a 60-mile long traffic jam. And people were stuck in this jam for 12 days. And it cleared up in 3 hours. It is an engineering mystery as to how that happened. Why didn't it clear on the 10th or the 7th day? Why that particular time and so fast? And if you look at the exact numbers, say this is Texas Transportation Institute, puts out these numbers every year. The 2010 number was $101 billion. This is the extra time and fuel spent by people stuck in traffic. This is not the cost of transportation, it's the cost of congestion. Okay. And adds a lot to emissions. And this is, the London number is, for example, 34%, the UK-wide number is 25%. And this is also not counting the cost of parking and traffic accidents and so on. So if you look at public transit, the situation is not very different in most urban areas. And this is particularly, if you go to YouTube and type crazy Japanese train, you'll get here. Okay, so this is the famous Shinjuku station in Tokyo. These are people paid by the train company to do human compression. And they're all students. If you want to apply, you can do it. Okay. So that's Shinjuku, but then London, Seoul, Shanghai, not that different. Peak time congestion exists in most transportation systems, whether it's the road or the public transit system. So you can summarize this entire problem in this sort of a diagram, which we'll call the hourglass figure. It's similar to the internet hourglass figure, which many of you have seen. In this case, there are us lot on top, and here are the networks that we use. And there's a huge demand placed on these networks by us, and there's short supply, and the question is how do we clear this? We can try and increase the supply, but it's not very easy to get 10x increase in energy, for example. And economists try to raise the price, and we will see a complementary approach, which is to try and incentivize. So let's take a little bit of a closer look to try and get to the base of this problem. So one way is to say it's demand exceeds supply, but that's just too gross a level to say that. Societal networks have this problem of resource wastage is highly permeable. That means think of leaky faucets. Okay. So this is dripping all over the place. And so if you look at the congestion numbers I told you, this $101 billion is the cost of congestion, but if you norm it on a per trip basis, it's about 40 cents. So none of us is incentivized to do anything about such a small number, and we don't tend to do it. Okay. And this is also true for electric lights and stuff. It's 9 or 10 cents a kilowatt hour, and you can burn lots of bulbs for it, and it still won't be hurting. And the other type of problem, which should there be a problem we like as engineering people, is to have this, let's call it broken hydrants. They're large, visible, and they have single points of failure. So it's easy to go and fix them. I mean, not terribly easy, but if you have problems, you'd rather have this type of problem. So BP oil spill and Fukushima disasters are two that stand out in that category from recent news. The point is that while the cost is about the same for congestion as well as for these disasters, solution complexity is totally different. Okay. And fundamentally, what happens in this case is you have to get a human behavior. Here, it's a system failure. And the second thing that these problems have, in some cases, is that cost is a nonlinear function of load. I'm thinking of traffic or energy demand. So we all know that load versus delay curves look like these. Think of the MM1 curves for queuing delays or something as an example. So as load approaches capacity, the slope of the function of cost, delay or crowdedness goes to infinity. So in such a network, if we reduce the load by a small amount, we can reduce the cost by a large amount. So that's what I mean by it's a 10% problem. So if you look at specifics in the energy world, peak energy has some dirty energy in it, first of all, plus the market sets the price. Combination of the two things means you'll end up with something like this, that if you reduce 5% demand in the peak time, you could reduce the price by 50%. And this is from during the crisis in 2001. And there are other numbers from studies. You can look at these papers are pointed to the Wikipedia page on demand response. Okay. Now, the situation in traffic is actually even more interesting. What happens with traffic is one of those few networks where, as load approaches capacity, capacity goes down. Okay. So if traffic is free flowing up to, there's a minimum speed limit on highways, which is 40 miles per hour. Because if anything smaller than that is encountered with density of traffic being high, there's only one way that's going to go. You can go down to zero. Okay. And so these curves, what they're saying is, as the vehicle density, these vehicles per mile per lane increase, the speed will drop down, and the flow is going to go down as the density increases, but also it's affected by weather. So it really has to do with inter-car gaps. So some hope that the autonomous vehicles like the Google cars can actually help here. And so in this case, it's even more dramatic. This is why we have ramp metering, for example, these sort of leaky buckets that drain us into the freeway at peak times. This is precisely for this reason. Okay. And so if you have any questions, please ask me as we go along. So what are some things people do? Okay, what do governments do? What do highway operators do? Well, first thing is they try to add capacity, and that is an ongoing thing, to keep adding capacity. And so here is Singapore has added 1,100 train trips in 3 years from 2008 to 2011, mostly to address peak load. And they're committed to adding $1.1 billion worth of buses over the next 10 years. And the interesting thing about this figure is, notice they're all double deckers. Okay, so you get, more packing per. Has anybody heard of the term PAX? PAX. PAX is a term. It's like a fundamental unit, like hertz or ohm. Okay, it means passengers. Essentially, it means passengers, but it's passengers per square meter. And they measure it. So many public transit systems declare their PAX in peak hours. Okay. So this is something that they think of as service level, service quality measure. And so penalties in this case are governments try to either add capacity, or when that's not enough, you raise price. Congestion charging is in effect in several cities. It's successful. People don't like it. The general perception is that it's yet another tax. And in the US, agencies have tried to stay away from calling it gas tax. So they call it vehicle miles traveled tax. Okay. And there's road rationing. Road rationing is something that many cities and countries practice. Depending on license plate number, you don't get to drive on one or more days of the week. Okay, so it's time division multiplexing. Athens practices it, and I'm told by my former student Costas that there are more license plates in Athens than there are cars. In China, they have more cars per household. They have the Monday, Wednesday cars. So the other thing that governments have started doing is inconvenience. We know that as, for example, carpooling. If you look at it one way, it's inconvenience. If you look at it another way, it's a good thing. Copenhagen has limited parking in the central business district, so if you can't have a place to park, you won't drive to the central business district. And so, really the big challenge with these sort of penalty methods is that they require a political mandate. You're put it up to the vote. This can be very difficult to get. So Bloomberg failed in 2008 to put congestion charging to the vote in New York City. He couldn't get it past Albany. Okay. So this is a very interesting comment I heard from the Commissioner for Traffic in Bangalore. There's a given the wealth levels in Bangalore and the congestion that exists, there's a willingness to pay, but there's no willingness to charge. It captures that whole lack of political will. Right? So if you think about it, what a mayor or someone or whoever's in charge doesn't want to do is, roads are a monopoly, so you have no second choice. It's not like networks reaching you at your house. You can get a satellite or cable or DSL. There are different ways you can. There's no competition here. So if I give you bad roads, I know I can cause congestion. Once now that I've caused congestion, I can charge you for it to get rid of it. So it's really a money-making thing. And the logic of that whole congestion charging is that the government takes the money collected and invests it back in either public transit or making the roads better. Okay. But you can't start the whole ball rolling. It's not easy. So the question is, let's flip it around and say, what if we paid people money? That's what we're going to see. Can we throw money at the problem? So let me recall the hourglass figure and put an engineering architecture sort of thing on it. What you will see is that on these networks we have sensing and sensors at this bottom end. There can be video cameras, RFID sensors, various things, increasingly smartphones. And this data is moved up into this, called an incentive engine or a behavior engine, which resides in some cloud. Most of our deployments is in the Amazon clouds, Amazon's web hosting services, AWS. And that in turn gives the individual user information and money. And in other words, money is there to ensure that personalized recommendations are accepted. Okay. Are we okay with this, Argos? So, the moment you're in the business of giving money, you're asking how much money do I have to give? And here's a useful thesis. Small good deeds aren't adequately rewarded, they aren't performed. So one thing we could consider is to pay out through a lottery. Since we're paying you 10 cents for avoiding a peak time trip, how about I put all that into a big pot and pay somebody $1,000, somebody else $50 and so on. Might you be interested or in getting incentivized? Should I do that? Okay. Well, let's see. I'm going to ask for you to participate in this game. Be truthful, okay, in your answer. So there are 2 envelopes on offer, one of which has $1 million in it, deterministically. The other one has $110 million, but 1% chance. So the average payout in the second envelope is 1.1 million. Who wants to take the $1 million envelope? Who wants to take the 1.1, the second envelope? Great. And some are even grad students. I believe in grad. So, let me reoffer the game to you at much lower stakes. So everything is dialed down by a factor of 1 million. So there's the deterministic payoff is $1 and the other one's $110 with 1% chance. Who wants envelope 1? Okay, so you all get the point. There's a theorem which shows proof of omitting. A version of it is well known. If you choose envelope 2 in version 1 of the game, you will choose it. That is, your propensity for risk increases when stakes are lowered. Okay, and economics theorems you can say all you're irrational. My theorem is true, or you're irrational. So this is it's true, but whether you're rational.
What you consider as considerable payoff?
Sorry?
You cannot scale rationality with just without bounds on money. There is a limit on what you consider worthwhile payoff.
It depends on the person.
Yeah.
That's why I put the question out to you guys. Right. So this is a good point. So it's in other words, some things that work for one segment of the population may well not work for another segment of the population. And in fact, Bernoulli, one of the Bernoullis, the resolution of the St. Petersburg paradox precisely makes this point. He used the word ducats. Okay. And that is, what's something that's worth 1,000 ducats to a rich guy, it's peanuts compared to somebody else. Okay. And so the theorem statement is simply one about concave utility function. So within itself, it's fine. Okay. And the show of hands helps because we have a population of various wealths. I think merely clustered. Not much changes from students. Don't let what I'm going to say about faculty salaries dissuade you. It's a nice profession. So, no, I think I was going to say that we work for the love of the subject. Money just allows us to go to conferences and meet friends. So let's run a recycling experiment and apply some of these ideas. So we did this in the freshman seminar course in spring 2010. In the state of California, you get 5 cents for returning this bottle or similar small-sized cans, 10 cents for the bigger units. And we offered the deterministic price as well as varying odds on the common currency notes. And everything is at 5 cents. The question is, what would recyclers choose? And so you've seen one thing that I've introduced, this idea of lotteries. The second one is I'm going to introduce this notion of games. So what we did was we had people come to this booth and make a selection like this. So in this case, what's being chosen is somebody's brought 5 units and they want to redeem each one of them for $5. Okay. So there's a sort of a background program, a MATLAB thing that just runs and then pretends to take time and then gives you the answer. Okay, and you're not lucky this time. So what happened was at the end of the second day, we saw a guy come and he was on the phone and he wouldn't get off the phone. He just gave us the units and said, play me for this and then we could have simply emailed him the results. He was not engaged. Okay? He wanted to know the outcome, but he was not further engaged in this process. So on day 3, we did something different. When recyclers came back on day 3, and the same option was now offered to them differently. And you'll see what I mean in a second, and it has other virtues. So this time around, we showed a 10 by 10 tile grid, that is to reflect the odds of $5 being paid out in 100 odds. The $20 reward is to be paid out in 400 odds, so it'll be a 20 by 20 tile grid. Okay, can we okay with this? One of these tiles has got $5 behind it. With your 5 units, you, the recycler, is supposed to find it. Okay? And if you hit the magic tile, you win. So someone chose this, but unluckily for them, they didn't win. Okay? Now what happened? First of all, nobody chose the first 5 tiles. They took their time to choose, like it matters. Okay? Second, when they lost, when the winning tile was adjacent to one of their choices, they were, that was so close. Okay? So this is quite compelling for us, and also it made the odds totally transparent. You don't have, I mean, you choose, we choose, right? So now, there's a problem with this. It's an interesting puzzle. What if the system is sneakily choosing the green tile after the red tiles are chosen? Right? Trust is important, right? What if that's the case? And in fact, one student said we should learn the tiles that people like to choose and then bias it against those. We didn't do that, first of all. Okay. So how do you get trust in the system? But let me give you a simple answer to a version of it. Think of a reverse vending machine. These devices exist. In these machines, you go and put the cans, empty cans, and they'll return you money. That's why they call it a reverse vending machine. So imagine that you put 5 cans in the reverse vending machine, and LCD display shows you the tiles from which you are to choose 5. But before you make a choice, the device actually prints out its own choice on a piece of paper and puts it out behind this partition that you can't, slide your hand through. So you know the system has made its choice. And now you make a choice, and the system, afterwards you can certify the system is actually not lied. So we know this thing as ignorance equals randomness quite well in this community. And that's all this is doing. And you can think of how you could do this over the internet. Okay. So here is user engagement after we did this. What is this? This is some student recycling for $20. This is 20 by 20 tile grid. He chose nearly, so this is a face, okay, with a smiley, and he won. Okay. So this is engagement, right? This takes some time to make. And so that's something we learned. So lotteries, games are an intuitive way of making the odds very clear. And if you're interested in this theory called prospect theory, which I highly recommend, it's all about how people lack the ability to, or while we can reason rationally, there are various reasons why we may not. Okay, and one of them is about low odds. The word prospect comes from precisely that term, the odds being low. Okay, so games, lotteries. In the event of this experiment, recyclers chose like this. We thought that this would be small, but many units were picked at the 5-cent thing, and the rest of it looks about right. That's what you want to see. The risk appetite is high at the low state end. And what happened was the number of recyclers that chose this was precisely 3. These were students who always drank from bottles, and they actually recycled those bottles for money, and they found us to be just a closer outlet. Okay. They heard about us and came to us. Okay. So we had to lug their 600 units to the recycling facility. So that's the recycling project. So here's another one, the lottery receipt experiment in China. About 3 years ago when I was talking about this, Ashutosh Sabharwal from Rice told me about this. Let me look it up. Sales tax is easy to avoid with complicity from both the buyer and the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper gets to have undeclared income. If I sell you something and take your money but don't give you a receipt, then I have undeclared income potentially. And the buyer doesn't have to pay sales tax. Okay. So this happens in several places. Governments try and send plainclothes cops and stuff and then try and punish all the offenders. Enforcement is the burden. So in this case, what happened in Taiwan in 1951, in fact, is that if every receipt had a lottery number printed on it, and you bought your things and then you drew from the the numbers that are issued. If you happen to hold a winning number, you collect your money. Okay? Just think of this completely elegant solution, right? But what happened when they did this in China? This paper has details. So here's an experiment, I mean not an experiment, this is running in China now. So over the period of 1998 to 2002, 30 million yuan of reward money was given out against collections of 900 million yuan in taxes. Okay. So this is like, you spend $1 and get $30 back. So that's an example. And there are many. So one academic application is this. Faculty salary increases when they occur are definitely no more than 2%. Students don't think that this is like, this is how it is. There are no bonuses, not like Wall Street. We're not the 1%. So what if, I propose to my dean, we gave increases of 200%, but 100 chance. So this is a way of staying on a committee work. Here are some pilots and deployments that we did in the last few years, other than the recycling project. Instant, Infosys Stanford Traffic Project, that's what started us on this, trying to incentivize behavior shifts. I won't talk about it. I will talk briefly about Spectacular, which is a wellness pilot, and InSync, which is running in Singapore, and Capri, which is running at Stanford. So, Spectacular is a project we did in 2011, or 5.5 months period, and we had, so the employees of Accenture USA from 37 different offices were signed up to an online platform which was in the cloud, and they could buy a pedometer and have their walking steps counted. Steps get converted to credits, credits get converted to dollars. The steps to credits conversion is deterministic. Credits to dollars is random. Okay? So the way you lose random rewards is you play a game of chance, and it's self-administered lotteries. And so we had these many people sign up, and some with friends, and the ultimate result is stated here is we had some increase in the number of steps people walk per day. I'll break it down even more. So many companies and universities do this now because they're all turning self-insured. So companies and universities like to know risk they're assuming. So if you get a blood test at Stanford, you get $100 just because the university now knows your cholesterol and lipids and stuff. So it knows what risk it's assuming. You as well know what your health looks like. And so wellness is another component to get you to do some physical activity. So here is what a person who signed on to this program looked at. Start thinking of frequent flyer programs. Okay, it's be like that. You do your activity, and again, so this is the summary of the activity. You can go track your steps and stuff. And this is a statement of how much money you have, and this is how many credits you have to redeem from. There's a list of your friends, some of whom are in the platinum level, so status exists, like in miles programs. Status is only acquired by good behavior. Okay? And so gold and silver. Okay? And then there's a sticker board that tells you who's winning what at a given time. How many dollars have been paid out. So that's, you'll see a live demo of this in a second. In the steps page, you got a sense for your own steps versus that of the average participant. And so, and this is your calories, and people got just the basic information. Here's the incentive interface. It's a game of chutes and ladders, and it's like a markup chain. Some states pay off, most don't. Okay, and so you roll your dice, so to speak, and then your credits balance, you're going to get subtracted from it. I mean, every time you roll this, it costs some amount, and then if you land on one of these lucky tiles, you win. You okay with this? So that's what happened. There are some interventions we ran, and in the interest of time, I won't tell you, but there's a 4-day boost and stuff we offer for an interesting reason, but I will skip it. So here are the results in brief. There's a paper on my website if you want to know more. When we started, the steps were around 6,500 on average. By the time I finished, it was just about 7,500. And so that's the trend. over the weeks of the program. Social effects, what this is showing is that this is the average stretch, it's the same figure as we saw in the previous slide, this one, the blue line. Here we launched this Friends program. You could invite your spouse or significant others or friends to participate and connect with you online, like you saw there earlier. This says those with friends did much better than those without friends. Okay? It's something about people either competing with each other or inspiring. There are various reasons we do these things. Okay? We are social animals. That's what we are. Okay? And so if you look at the number of friends, you can break it down by degree distribution. Compared to 0 friends, if you had 1 friend, those that had 1 friend walked an extra 525 steps per day on average. And if you had, 6 or more friends, you walked up to 1,500 steps extra. Okay, so the degree mattered up to a point after that. It doesn't matter if you have 100 friends. And the other thing that it had as an effect was stickiness. So the probability that you last out in the program was increased the more friends you had. This actually is a bigger effect and a more interesting effect than the fact that you just walk more. People tend to drop out of these things. If you have friends, you get some stickiness. Okay. Okay, so any questions on Steptacular? Yes?
How do you guarantee truthfulness?
How do I?
Truthfulness.
How do we get truthfulness?
How do you guarantee it?
You can't guarantee it. They can put their pedometer on the dog and have it run around. That's possible. I mean, you have to look at what's offered in these programs, typically self-reporting. And what are they winning anyway? After a while, it's not like they're getting an annual bonus level of incentives. So the biggest winner, I think, won something like $350 or $400. That was the luckiest person. But the average person won, I don't remember the number now. We had about $2 per person per week to pay deterministically. Right.
But the number that the report is not tied to the reward.
No, the number is taken out from the pedometer. You can do whatever you want with the pedometer. You can shake it with your hand, you can do whatever. Okay.
And so the calorie computations are also based on the pedometer measurements. So the dog might be using those, but not you.
That's right. So, no, I think
one more question actually. So how long did you run this for?
5.5 months.
5.5 months. And is there any effort to check on them later? Because the longitudinal data is the data that you're interested in. I mean, 6 months is already long, but it's the 2-year, 5-year.
So why don't I go to the other projects and tell you about that? Yeah. The question is about how long-lasting are these effects. Okay. It is the case that some of these guys tend to drop out, by the way. I mean, there's a summer break and some people drop out. What brings them back in actually is their friends, interestingly. Those with, people lose pedometer. Pedometer is not, they don't do anything. Okay, they don't answer your phones, they don't take, you can't email. It's a stupid device that sits on your hip and it's easy to fall off and so on. And there are guys jumping into the lake with a pedometer in their pocket in Chicago. And so you can, now the question is, will you replace the pedometer? That's a huge friction point. And those with friends tend to do it with a higher chance than those who do not have friends. Okay. So the stickiness comes from the fact that money is being paid out. And it's an opt-in and you may decide not to do it for a while, but then it will come back. Yes?
What about the time value of money? Would it be the same for all kinds of groups? Let's say you do it for a group of CEOs versus a group of engineers. Would it be the same?
Everybody walks. This is the counting steps that you take to go to the bathroom or conference room or to the garage, right?
So for some people, the incentive might not be enough to do this.
That's true. I mean, that's right.
I
So
think his point is it the poorer people that are more incentivized?
that's actually not true for wellness. It may be more true for traffic, but that's also a problem. I mean, this is the thing that was deemed to be undemocratic, that if you raise the price, only the rich can afford it. Shouldn't the roads belong to everybody? Well, pay the poor some money to take an off-grid trip if they're so inclined to do it, right? So, in a city, you get a very wide range of utility functions. Without that, you have almost nothing to, base your work on, right? There's no reason it should work. Okay, so The other two examples of transportation, so let me just give you a sense of how that looks. Transportation currently looks like this. Let's call this the hub and spoke model or architecture, which means these people, that's all of us, don't interact with each other on the road, and if we do, it's negative. I hate you because you're in front of me, taking my space, and you hate me because I'm in front of you, etc. And all of us interact with this network, whether it's transit or it's roads, and then it's operated upon by these entities, so there's no touch point between these things. That's one way in which it's not, that it's different from what I will show you. Another way in which it's different is that we're not all linked up, okay, in any social way. So let's see, what could it look like in the 21st century, given all the technology we now have? We could have an incentive engine in the cloud, into which could be pulled user behavior data, in ways that I'll show you. But as well, we could get real-time usage data from the networks themselves. And we can have incentive money come in either from the operators or from sponsors, corporate social responsibility credits, and just merchants trying to give away coupons, etc. The so-called public-private partnerships. There's ways in which you can get the money. But you can aim the rewards at those who are giving you good behavior in exchange. And some of this can be, that's what I mean by micro-targeted. So if you're going, let's say, on the 5 freeway here, but in the wrong direction to where the congestion is, you don't need to be incentivized. We won't target you especially. But if you're going between the 5 exits where congestion is the worst, then you might get an extra incentive, for example. So the impact you as a commuter have on the underlying network could elicit this micro-targeted incentive. That's what micro-targeted means. Real time, there's interesting cases like I'm at a bus stop, my smartphone knows that that is the case. There's a bus arriving, which I'm interested in taking. The bus knows that I take that route typically, but it's 90% full, and it gives me a spot offer of 150 credits saying, don't take me, take the guy behind me, who's behind by 3 minutes, he knows that, and you will get 150 credits. Okay.